Each year, the Voice of Democracy Scholarship Contest releases a new question or theme to be evaluated by high school students throughout the country. This year, the theme was, "Is this the country our founding fathers envisioned?" Hello, my name is Anna-Lynn, and this is my speech answering that question. You answer the frantic call from your wife. She tells you that she's in labor and that she needs you by her side. You run into the delivery room, a confusing chorus of travail and excitement. With each contraction, the chorus swells. After 6 long, exhilarating hours, all eyes turn to the doctor, who now holds a precious baby in their hand. As they wipe away the blood, you behold the beautiful gift of life. However, as painful and uncertain as labor is, the task of rearing a child is more so. But like all loving parents, you envision the best. When America was first born, she was little more than an infant whose development depended on her forefathers. There was no certainty she would survive, especially in a world filled with tyranny. There were no guides to parenting a free republic, and the only guideposts were in the injustices of the tyrannical forms of government that existed. As with all parents, mistakes were made, not the least of which were the Articles of Confederation. You see, even though the colonists had won, there was an enormous debt that needed to be paid off, but the federal government couldn't levy taxes or regulate commerce, which left the states to their own defenses. Not long after, banks seized private farms and citizens rebelled against taxes. But in the throes of these growing pains, did our forefathers abandon their offspring in the grand experiment of freedom? Of course not. Instead, they took to Philadelphia and drafted a document that breathed new life into it, the Constitution. You see, this document not only endowed the federal government with the ability to raise revenue, which leaned America off our dependence on debt, but it also guaranteed Americans God-given rights. I often wonder what drove these men in times of crisis. What emotions guided their resolve? Why does any parent instill in the child the lessons of wisdom when no one knows what the future holds? The answer is quite simple. Love. Our founding fathers envisioned America as a beacon of liberty, not just for her inhabitants, but for those who suffered oppression around the world. For the child to thrive, she needed a set of rules that could adapt to changing landscapes of cultural and technological progress. The Constitution's rules encouraged the ratification and alteration of laws to provide for the common defense and general welfare. To discourage corruption, our forefathers created checks and balances that prevent one branch from abusing its power. Our Bill of Rights, one of the most influential governing documents in the world, gave the founding fathers parental mission statement, a statement of inalienable rights, defended by a self-sacrificing military whose mission is to guard freedom. The Constitution, in short, was built for change. I imagine a forefather or two peeking down from above into the year 2020, savagely wincing at our changing tastes in music and literature, but like a loving grandfather, nodding predictably about how human nature has stayed the same. So many of us lament that our country is getting worse. But from the protesters in Portland, to the greed grabbers on Wall Street, to the policy panderers of the pandemic, there's nothing our forefathers didn't imagine. Through the amendment process, they assessed the pros and cons of the Electoral College as surely as they foresaw the need for future amendments to protect the sacred right to vote. In an age weary of rigged elections and mail-in ballots, their prescience continues to guide us through peaceful transfers of power, and so with it, external threats of American freedom. American patriots, especially those who brave the wounds of military service, sustain our founders' vision, while teaching my generation what it means to be men and women in the face of tyranny. Before America was born, her founding fathers conceived her to be a great nation. As she flourished across fruited plains toward Purple Mountain's majesty, the Constitution guided her through a gauntlet of moral and legal dilemmas. Centuries later, as we explore new frontiers in space and information, we can hear the founding fathers whisper my own father's words of wisdom. parenting isn't easy, and neither is democracy. With the highest wisdom of God and man, the founders not only envisioned, but created a nation as free now as it was as its glorious birth. A country that through the trials and tribulations will always emerge victorious.